So this is the live oak trail, and this takes you back a little bit off of the main trails that you might see if you go to Boyd Hill. A lot of people hit the first two trails, which are wetlands trails, and then they go to that little island that goes out over Lake Magori, and then they usually turn left and they end up by a little pond and then in the drier scrubby areas. But if you go past that, it may just look like regular boring forest, but there's a lot of good stuff back here. You just have to look for it and be a little patient. One of the things we're going to look for back here are going to be jumping spiders. We might see some dragonflies back here, and who knows what else we'll find.
Now, what Matt's looking for in this area here are jumping spiders. Typically on these palmettos, when we explore through Boyd Park, we'll find jumping spiders, very large, kind of intimidating looking spiders, but they're really cool. So hopefully we'll find one today, and then Matt will tell you all about them.
Now, in Florida, you'll find these brown anoles all over the place. They're actually an introduced species that came in with houseplants and things like that. The native species is called the green anole, and there's one right here on this palmetto. And you might be thinking to yourself, Matt, that is a brown colored anole. And he is, you're right. But he can turn green, and he'll do that for communication, to absorb heat or not absorb heat, possibly to blend in for this species. You can see him hanging out on this palmetto. Now this is a good thing to see because I see way more of the invasive brown anoles than I do the green ones. Buddy. One thing that gives them away is that they have a slender body, a smoother look to them, and if you can see right around this animal's eyes, there's still a little bit of kind of almost a turquoise green color. They do have the dewlap, that little flap of skin that they pull out like a flag, just like the brown anoles. And in most places, it is kind of a reddish color. However, there is a park that Mark and I will get to at some point called Corkscrew Swamp, where the green anoles have white dewlaps. Now, you've heard us talk about prescribed burns, where things are burnt on purpose, areas of a habitat are burnt on purpose. This is a good example of that. This was burnt probably not that long ago, because if you look at some of these palm trees, like this one right here in front of me, I mean, you can still see the ends of some of these palm fronds are crispy. They're burnt. But look at what's coming out of the top. Out of the top of these trees. These trees can tolerate that burn, and they're flowering right now. So there are certain species of plants, just like there are certain species of animals, that can handle that. And so what happens is these burn, and it burns a lot of this lower brush and scrub away. But what remains are the plants that you would expect to find in this kind of scrubby habitat. Now, if you were to leave this go for a while, it would start to grow up, and you'd get more different types of plants in here that would grow taller. You would get different types of shade, and some of these plants that you would see here would not be able to survive. And you would just change the ecosystem. The habitat would be different. And that can be good too, but we need all the different types of habitat. So prescribed burns are super important. Here's a crispy tree right here. So we're heading toward the Pine Flatwoods Trail, 0.2 mile trail, not very long. We're looking for gopher tortoises, but I'll tell you there are three things that I love about the Pine Flatwoods Trail. One of them is that you have a high probability of seeing gopher tortoises. Another thing is that you have a pretty high probability of seeing six-lined race runners. And then the third and last thing is that there's a water station right at the front.
Water is always good.
And also shelter. So if you're here in Florida hiking around, be prepared to get wet. We get a lot of rain showers. They don't usually last very long, but bring an umbrella or a rain jacket if you're not comfortable. If you have any expensive video gear or anything else that can't get wet, be prepared for that. I'm going to get a drink of water. So Boyd Hill costs $3 admission, or you can do a pass for your family or an individual pass. And that's not a lot of money, because if you go to one of our theme parks here in Florida, you're probably going to spend anywhere from probably $60 to $90 just for the ticket alone. Here, what you get is admission to the park for the whole day and ice water. And let me tell you, on a hot, humid day like today, this is like a fine scotch.
Oh, yes, yes.
I'm going to get some
Very
more.
refreshing.
Hey, Mark, I think that might be a six-line race runner up there moving around. He's pretty far up, probably can't see him on camera, but he's just moving back and forth on the trail, and he's got that movement that's different than our other lizards here in Florida. You see him up on the right?
Hey, Matt, the little six-line race runner's right over here.
Oh yeah. Now these guys are really fast, but I think we can see him over here. It looks like he's just rummaging around. I really like six-line race runners. They're a cool lizard. One of the reasons I like to come to Boyd Hill is to see these guys, and it's one of the few places I know of that you can see them pretty consistently. And the reason I like them, one, they live up to their name. They're fast. I mean, you saw them skirting across the pathway, super fast. And they're also in a family of lizards that is kind of unique. So in Florida, we have some geckos that are introduced. That's a family of lizards. We have iguanids, which are your anoles and most of your lizards here. And skinks is another family. Well, these guys are in the family Teiidae, which are things like tegus and amoebas in South America. The only native Teiidae lizard we have in Florida are these little six-line race runners. And they just look a little different. They're sort of skink-like, but they're not as shiny. They've got a real stocky little legs, makes them really fast and low to the ground. Really cool lizards.
And these guys are pretty much exclusively insectivores, right?
They are, yeah. They're insectivores, and they love these dry habitats where the gopher tortoise is.
And I know a lot of people know that a lot of different species of lizards will drop their tail, right? Will this guy do the same thing if somebody grabs him?
Absolutely, yeah. Their tails are really sensitive, and sometimes they're called six-line race runners. Sometimes they have a bluish hue to them, and sometimes their tail's a little blue, but don't confuse them with the shiny five-line skinks or some of the other skinks where the males and the juveniles will have a bright blue tail, and they will also drop their tails really fast.
All right, we'll let this guy finish trying to find some food, and we'll move on.
All right.
So next loop that we'll take here is the Sand Scrub Trail. So we're going to be looking for gopher tortoises again, more six-line race runners like we've already seen. Just kind of a cool area. I don't think I've ever seen one of the Chuck Will's widows around here. Have you ever seen one?
No, I have not.
So we'll see if we can keep an eye out for one of those as well. So me filming you, you filming me?
Yes.
All right, let's do it.
All right, there's an osprey over there. There we go.
Our friend the gopher tortoise.
Yeah, I see a lot of these guys here, especially in this pine scrub area. And there's another trail, it's very similar to this. And yeah, this is a great habitat for them. They're one of the animals that depend on that prescribed burn. They need it in order to keep this habitat their kind of habitat. In fact, if we look around here now, just kind of zoom out a little bit, because this is probably, this area I would guess is due for a burn, because it's starting to get overgrown, and if it changes too much, then animals like this little gopher tortoise are not going to be able to find the right type of food and shelter and that sort of thing. Now, these guys are usually pretty comfortable with humans, but we don't want to scare them. So we'll try and get a little closer, but we're just going to walk slowly, and if he starts to go the other way, we'll just back off and leave him go. Oop, or maybe he's going to come see us. As I said, this is an animal that's usually not too frightened of humans, but we should still give them space and be respectful of them. Hey, fella. Now, gopher tortoises have sort of a mixed history as far as how common they are. One of the problems that gopher tortoises have, the main problem that gopher tortoises have, is habitat loss. Because they live in these upland areas where it's drier, that is also a great place to build stuff. And so they're in huge competition with humans for space. It's easy to eradicate these guys. They can't live in the swampy areas that a lot of the animals in Florida live in. That's what most of Florida is, are swampy areas. So they need the specialized habitat. And it just turns out that it's the same one that we tend to like as well. The good thing is places like Boyd Hill Preserve, they have a large population of gopher tortoises here. And so when you do give them a little space, they can really thrive. But we have to be careful that we have enough diversity and enough of them and enough areas for them so that we can keep that species going.
You do know you just came from that direction, right?
You know what you call a gopher tortoise hole?
No, what?
Shelter.
Ba-dum-bum. Don't quit your day job. Now I'm sure we'll find one of the gopher tortoise burrows as we kind of walk along this trail here, and we'll try to show you what that looks like when we do find one of those. When a gopher tortoise builds their burrow, do they rely on the same burrow for a long period of time?
They will. They'll usually build that burrow and they'll stay in it for possibly years if weather doesn't destroy it and they have to rebuild it. Their burrows can be really long. They're as deep as they need to be, but they have to compete with a pretty high water level here because we're not in a high elevation, even in the highest parts of Florida. But not only do they live in those holes, a lot of other animals live in those holes as well. So different types of snakes, including really rare snakes like indigo snakes, eastern diamondback rattlesnakes, different types of mammals, birds, and of course insects and other terrestrial invertebrates will find shelter in these holes. Just as a regular shelter, but also when those prescribed fires come through, this is where they're going to go to survive. So without the gopher tortoise digging those holes, you could still do the prescribed burn, but you're going to lose a lot of your fauna because they don't have any place to go for shelter.
Well, that was a great day at Boyd Hill.
Absolutely, yeah.
Got a lot of walking in, some good hiking. For those of you that like to track your steps, we got in over 12,000 steps today. Just over 6 miles walked, actually.
I tell you what, too, it was a hot day. It was a humid day. That's one of the great things about Boyd Hill. Lots of water stops, and make sure you stay hydrated whenever you go out hiking. But yeah, lots of fun stuff.
Yeah, it was really cool, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that like button down below. Let us know, and leave comments for us. Let us know what you liked about it. Let us know if there's something else you'd like to see in our videos, or if you just have questions about maybe we didn't give full information on any specific animals we've seen today, or about the biomes that we were hanging out in today. So definitely leave comments for us. We really appreciate it. And make sure you get out there and go explore some nature.
All right. See you later.